Hello and welcome to this inaugural episode of Feel at Home. I'm Dante.
And I'm Kurs.
Today we're going to be running you through the basics of Temple of Anubis.
Under the protection of Pharah and her employers, Helix Security Systems, the Temple of Anubis lies beneath Egypt's Giza Plateau. Prisoned to the lethal god AI known as Anubis, the safety and integrity of the temple is key to the survival of the region and potentially the whole world. With her dream of joining Overwatch dead and buried alongside the organisation itself, Pharah Amari, callsign Pharah, has dedicated herself to safeguarding the installation.
As with all maps, Temple of Anubis features several major choke points to force conflicts. This starts off early with the main archways at the head of the road leading to point A. These are flanked by two rooms which act as additional but usually minor choke points. The left loops around to the bridge where defenders often like to set up, but for characters with decent vertical movement, think Pharah, D.Va, Genji and Junkrat mostly, there is an alternative route through the upper window that will allow you to get right behind the enemy defensive line. On the right you link back into the main path, however there are stairs to the right which link back either to the bridge or a much more useful upper level, enabling a flank to the back of the point. A quick or sneaky character like Tracer, Genji or a clever Reaper Shadow Step along this route open up flanking opportunities to pull a defending team back to the point.
Moving on to point B brings us another 3 choke points, but this time they link up a little differently. The main path is now a straight line with a narrow single archway governing the entrance, but this time the side paths are more accessible due to there being more open and therefore harder to defend initially. Again, we'll start with the left side, which as a little fun fact used to be walled off in beta. After entering, the path branches off in 3 directions, but only 2 tend to be useful. That's mostly because the right hand one just takes you back to the main path. The path straight ahead of you leads under the main bridge all the way around to the right of the point, and you're largely in cover the whole way there. The last option on the left takes you into this large dark side room, which leads right round to the back on the left side of the point, and also to one of the defenders' spawn room exits.
There are some great setup locations for the builder characters, beginning with the bridge covering the main path for point A. This will often be used for Bastions and Tourbillons to rain fire down onto the starting choke point, though they are vulnerable to long-range offensive snipers or rocket fire should they remain there for too long. A safer idea is often to set up to the side of the choke, catching attackers as they push through the incoming fire from your team, and as ever, never staying in one spot for too long. Next to the side rooms are great options for a Symmetra to set up the car wash of turrets due to the confined space. Placing them inside the rooms themselves may get you the odd kill on an unsuspecting attacker, but the close proximity means one Pharah rocket or a Junkrat grenade can take out your whole setup. Speaking of Junkrat, having him set up traps in these rooms with covering grenade fire can often completely shut out a flank to all but a sustained and coordinated push.
Point B has significantly fewer options for the aspiring turret builder due to a more accessible flanking route and generally greater openness. This is especially true of Symmetra, who has no enclosed space to turn to a nest, and oftentimes I'd advocate switching off of her if the game reaches this point. She's not without merit however, and scattering the turrets or placing them strategically and unexpectedly around the point itself can certainly assist in fending off an attack. As for Bastion and Torb, well, you'll usually want to set up in either the right hand cover overlooking the point, or in the little sheltered corner to the left. The benefit of both these locations is that you can't be sniped, but it does leave you vulnerable to flankers, so watch and listen out for them, and make sure not to stay still for too long. A Bastion with adequate support can sometimes take up a more central position and completely shut down the main path, but we wouldn't advise taking it up as a permanent placement.
For you snipers out there on both defense and attack, there are a couple of good spots that provide views for either the choke points or the defensive emplacements at a safe distance. The first are potentially the most rewarding, but also the most open in the form of platforms above the archways. You can sometimes get a sneak kill at the very start of a round as the attackers leave the sandcrawler, but it's advisable to hook back behind your team lines quickly after that. This rooftop is the most common platform as it has a great path of escape and the view of the entire choke. Nothing should get past without you seeing them. If you get pushed back from here, the final fallback points are either by the rear staircase behind the point or the other rooftop.
Yes, so what Dantier said about the archway for point A can be basically copy-pasted for the point B archway. It's open, but rewarding if you can pull it off. Just don't expect to live forever if you stay there. It's actually more useful for an offensive sniper that takes up this spot, or either of the lower circle platforms beneath, as these can provide sight to take out entrenched defences. There are 2 useful long-range offensive sniper points, much safer but much less potent. These are here, and here. This is one of the few points in the game where a defensive sniper can often have more issues getting set up than an offensive one. The best bets tend to be on the pillar platforms for safety against flankers, and on the left hand side where you can view the attacker's right flank all the way back to point A.
Like with her turret, Symmetra gets a lot more value from her teleporter on point A than she does on point B, due to the much longer run back and the numerous locations you can place the teleporter. If your team is defending aggressively and holding the attackers to the choke, you can look at placing the teleporter on the right hand side behind where you set up the car wash, but if you're getting pressured, look at using the rooms behind or above the point.
For B, the run back is so short that the teleporter is naturally less useful. The most obvious place is the narrow hallway behind the point, but when doing this it can be best to tell your team only to use it in case of emergencies, as using the charges up to get back when the point isn't under pressure is pretty damn wasteful.
The first choke is pretty easy to split up. Vertical movement characters get the most joy attacking left, speedy or teleporting characters benefit most going right. If the left path is locked out by a Symmetra or a Junkrat, a Pharah or D.Va can fly above the wall and bypass the static defense completely, opening the flank to the rest of their team. Once in the actual room with the medpack, these guys can also get up through the high windows and circle right behind the point. This is incredibly useful for a D.Va in her role as a disruption tank, as she can pull a whole defensive line back from the choke.
For those going right, you'll want to go up to the top level. This is enclosed and almost never defended, and allows you to get the drop on the point from above, particularly handy for picking up a backline Mercy or Zenyatta, or for taking out static defences that have retreated this far back. The optimal scenario is getting up here as a Reaper and dropping down with his ult, but a Tracer Pulse Bomb or Genji Dragonblade can be similarly destructive.
Point B is much lighter on sneaky shortcuts, as every character can easily take any of the 3 paths available. The right side has rubble that acts as jumping points that allow anyone to get round the back and flank, and the left side is entirely enclosed.
One of the few genuine options comes from utilising verticality as a surprise tactic. Launching up from the lower path and dropping a Pharah or a D.Va ult on the point against unprepared defences can at worst scatter the enemy away from their positions, and at best wipe out a whole bunch of them.
If you enjoyed or learned anything, please hit that like button and subscribe. You can check out more of our content by clicking on one of the annotations here, and until next time, I've been Dantir.
And I've been Kaz. Thanks for watching.